All right, so welcome to our video Q&A, some practical advice on reopening your fitness business safely and successfully. This is something we wanted to record in order to allow you to come back to it, learn from it. We will also have some follow-up information that you can use. We know that this is a really rough time for everyone, and there's a lot of confusion around the best way to open a business, a fitness business in this current climate. So we pulled together some resources and an expert in the field of running a wellness fitness, Sabrina Polakoff, here with me today. And we wanted to just have an open dialogue about the best way to do this in a calm and collected way so that you feel better about the whole process. So first, just to introduce myself, my name is Amnesty Coldwell. I am a strategic account manager at Mindbody. I work with some of our larger customers here in the UK and in Europe. So I've been heavily involved in trying to help them understand best practices in reopening their businesses, getting through this period of uncertainty. And Sabrina used to be a customer of mine for a company called Little Gym, and we worked very closely. But she also does consultation on crisis management and other areas of opening a wellness business. But I'll let her introduce herself at this point so that she can get more information on who she is.
Thanks, Amnesty, and hi, everybody. It's nice to be here with you today. I'm Sabrina Polakoff, and I'm an international business consultant specializing in working with entrepreneurs and franchises. My company, Make My Day Group, actually specializes in bringing brands to their next stage of growth by focusing on clear vision, building strategies, and empower their development. I've worked many years in the corporate world for a lot of wellness and beauty and fashion companies around the world. And as Amnesty mentioned, more recently working with the Little Gym of Europe, managing a network of franchises throughout Europe. Obviously, COVID has hit every country, and I have actually been working on the crisis with the Little Gym Europe since the beginning, taking them through, having to close the businesses, working with them on, what to do during the crisis, and obviously reopening most of them throughout Europe. So obviously this is the last phase of European opening in the UK. So we're super excited that you're going to be opening your business really soon. So here's some advice on how to best reopen. Some of the things you may not have yet thought about, we will be sharing with you today. And this will be able to strengthen the reopening of your business and ensure that it's successful.
Amazing. I'm really excited about working with Sabrina today and just having an open conversation. She's got so much guidance and information. But just to break down what we're going to go over today, we're going to look at first and foremost, which I think is everyone's biggest issue or concern right now, is government guidelines, especially for the UK. We'll also be looking at setting your schedules correctly and in the best way to make sure that you're maximizing revenue, how to handle your staff as they come back, how to make them comfortable in their return. We'll also be looking at retention. So we all have probably a big concern about whether people will be returning to business, but we'll give you some tips. Sabrina will give you some tips on how to do that. We'll also be talking about marketing and how that plays into retention as well. And last bit here is preparing for a second wave. So I think we all know that there will be a second wave, but if we prepare for it properly, then we can definitely survive and get through this in an amazing and in a way where we're growing instead of in a negative light. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we'll start on the government guidelines there. So I'm going to just keep the conversation on Sabrina and I for the moment so that we can keep our dialogue open for this. So I just want to ask the first question here, which is on government guidelines. Let's start talking about what these are, what they look like, what they might mean, and maybe some of the guidance that you might give on what's the most important things to focus on.
Great, indeed. Obviously the government guidelines are there for a purpose, and the purpose is to keep everybody safe. So your number one rule is going to be to ensure that you're going to follow these government guidelines in order to successfully reopen your facility. Customers will be looking out to see that you're following the guidelines. So this is really, really important for you to understand these guidelines before you reopen your facility. It is important to not only understand them and read through them, but the success of your business will depend on how well you follow the guidelines and you communicate these to your customers and staff as the new normal. Obviously, as we are speaking today, we're talking about England. For Scotland and Wales, the governments have not finalized yet these guidelines and the reopening information for the fitness industry. So what we will be talking about today is obviously focusing on England, and the business advice that I will actually be sharing with you obviously remains the same for all of the countries, and it has actually already been done in some of the other European countries to date, so we know that these have worked before. So let's start with the facility. Obviously, welcoming your customers into your facility is going to be really important, and it's important for them to basically have clear communication when they enter the facility. So I would really recommend that you create a route for your customers who are coming in and out of your facility, obviously separating the people who are coming in from the people going out, and this being clearly indicated through arrows on the floor, signage in your facility, any kind of communication that makes it really simple to follow. I mean, the key here is really to keep things as simple as possible, even though there are a lot of things to think about. It's the same thing whether it's when they're coming into the facility at the reception area, or if they're in your different studio spaces or in the gym area. Signage needs to be put everywhere, even in the stairs, even in the toilets or the locker rooms. I mean, there needs to be clear signage really everywhere. And it can even start as far as, entering your parking. Where there needs to be some clear explanation of what customers should expect. So it's really important. So, let's just take it one room at a time. Is when the customer walks into the reception area, they need to see that you have these little models with hand wipes and sanitizers or disinfectant sprays and paper towels, so that they feel that when they're coming in, that they can actually take a pump of the disinfecting gel that they can rub in their hands, and that if there needs to be cleaning to be done, that all of this material is available. And yes, it is the responsibility of businesses to make these available. It is not up to the customers to bring in their gels and their disinfectant sprays and all of that. They could do that as well, but it is the responsibility of the businesses to make sure that that is available all over the facility. If you have some TV screens, it's a great time to offer, guidelines here and to show your customers and communicate with them in terms of what they need to do and what you expect them to do, because they will be more than happy to follow the guidelines that you're putting in place. Not just about cleaning information, but let's say you are having an updated schedule or adapting your opening hours. This is, of course, information that should be put on the screen as well. If you are going to be allowing non-members in, there is a process that needs to be put in place to retain their contact details for 21 days. And this is in case of contamination. So it's important to be able to track back customers who are not members and who you don't have in your system, in your software. If you are able to do card and contactless payment options, this is actually really valuable at this point, because customers and a lot of businesses actually will not be wanting to pay cash. So this is really important to be put in place. For the group classes, let's now go on to the studio spaces. One of the things that has been suggested is to place dots on the floor so customers know where they need to actually be and in order to follow the social distancing. What you will notice is when people first kind of come back into a group class is, again, the very first time everybody's a little bit uncomfortable, how far away should we be from each other? Where should we stand? So the more you give them guidance, the less stress there will be when they come in. If you are teaching yoga or other classes where there needs to be mats and props, you could suggest to your customers that they actually should be bringing their own. And they should always be cleaned before and after class. So whether these are the customer's own mats and props, or if they are from your own facility, everybody needs to clean their mats and props before and after the class. So you should, again, have enough cleaning products and paper towels available for disinfecting these in the studios. In the fitness areas, it's important to move your equipment if you have a lot of it that's really close to each other. For example, treadmills, if you have a row of 5 treadmills, well, basically you're going to have one treadmill that's usable, the next one that's going to be not usable. It's okay to put a cute message that, to just also say that that machine is not in use during the day. And so you will need to either space them out if you have the space, or if you can't and you can't store any of the extra equipment, you are going to need to basically ensure that it's blocked off from being used. Here again, customers need to disinfect before and after use. So, they need to have wipes. Wipes tend to be actually the fastest to use in the gym areas, because it can just be pulled instead of having a spray and a paper towel made available to customers. And here again, inside the gym area, there needs to be an in and outgoing flow for customers to be able to understand, which way they need to go. All of the cleaning guidelines obviously are going to be are based on what Public Health England is sharing in terms of advice. And they also have posters available to display in your facility to inform customers and staff of what the social distancing and cleanliness and hygiene protocols are throughout the facility. So we definitely encourage you to make these available and to put them on the walls. In general, if we look at general guidelines, customers should come in their workout attire and shower at home if possible. Definitely when you're first reopening, it is always best to be able to do that. If you do have a locker room in your facility, again, you need to block out sections to respect that social distancing. Even hair dryers should not be made available unless obviously the government is authorizing this, as there's a risk of just spreading droplets in the air. So if you have power outlets, it may be best to just turn them off, because even if customers bring in their own hair dryer, the issue is the same. And there are no towels that should be made available to customers, and customers should not even be bringing their own towels at this stage. So that's really important to communicate this with your customers. If you have a cafe, actually, that one can be open as long as you're following the government guidelines in terms of social distancing again. And customers should really be encouraged to bring in their own water bottle when they're sporting. And if you have a water fountain, it's something obviously that they can use and fill up. The last point in terms of the facility is to check your ventilation system and keep the doors and windows open if possible. If you have windows, try to keep them open all day long. The weather at the moment is still good and the temperature is good, so take advantage of that. Even in the studios, keep the doors open, even if you're teaching 2 or 3 classes at the same time, if you have the possibility without it making too much noise. as much ventilation as you can have, the best it is. So that sums up a little bit of the facility practicalities and some tips on what you can look for in terms of facility.
Yeah, and I know that it seems like a lot, and that's a lot of really good information, and it can be overwhelming, but I think the biggest thing to keep in mind here, and a lot of what my customers are saying, is they're trying to keep this as simple as possible. Have less staff on the ground, make sure that you're visibly cleaning. That just gives the customers the the confidence in the fact that you're following some of these guidelines. But yeah, so while it's a lot of information, some of it may not apply to your specific fitness area or your industry, but it's just common sense. Keep it clean, keep less touch points. A lot of our customers are not going to have water fountains. They'll have those turned off just to help people be reminded that they need to bring their own water bottles and take responsibility for those areas of the fitness, their fitness regimes, so to speak. So, all right, so we're going to move on to the second section here, and I'm going to ask, we've just gone through so much. So with that, it seems like we're going to have less people in our facilities. So do you, Sabrina, have any suggestions on how to adhere to social distancing, and what are their financial viabilities are there going to be for the studio, and what advice would you give there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the schedule is a really good topic. Obviously, everybody wants to go back to their regular schedule the way it was before COVID as quickly as possible, but this is one area that's going to need to be built up. Again, customers are going to be coming back, but it's 100% of your customers are not going to be back in the first week. So it's really important to think about what your schedule could look like, and if you have been able to stay in touch with your customers during the lockdown and have had an opportunity to actually have any kind of surveys or other ways of communicating with your customers, you may have an idea of which customers will be coming back and what they will be looking for. But it is obviously, the fitness industry works on volume. So, it is important to try to get in as much volume as possible, as quickly as possible. This being said, the guidelines are there for a reason. We want to stay healthy, and we want to try to not have to close down a second time. So it's super important to be able to follow those guidelines when you're thinking about your schedule as well. So the first thing to do is really to calculate, based on your facility size, how many customers can you have in your facility at any given time. And that means people in the group classes, it means people in the fitness areas, it may mean people in your cafe, it may be the people coming in. That's the first thing you need to do, is to calculate what that new schedule is going to look like. And then based on that, you'll need to be able to actually build on it on a weekly basis. So it needs to have a regular review. What are some of the options you can do to maximize the capacity? Well, your priority is trying to get as many people back in when you're reopening your doors. So perhaps during that first week, we can offer shorter classes so that you can actually include some of your most popular classes several times more within the week, and so therefore it allows more people to come in. If you are a fitness where people just have a membership and they can come in as many times as they want, you may also want to limit the number of classes that people can attend in that first week. If they come and they pay as they go, then you can decide basically how that is going to go. But every member should have an opportunity to come back and to experience, their favorite classes again. Another option for you to incorporate more classes and more time is to open a bit earlier and closing a bit later than you plan to, so that there are more people who can come in and out of your facility. Another option is, and this is if your facility actually has space outside, even your parking. you could actually be offering classes in parallel outside. So if you have a swimming pool, or if you have a parking, or if you have a green area that's really on your facility, well, use that space. It's okay to use that space. Even doing a yoga class or a BBB class on a parking is actually quite fun when you've been indoors for 4 months. So, you know, don't be afraid to think outside of the box and to create some new opportunities for yourself. The last option that I can suggest is, unfortunately, because of COVID, we've seen a lot of businesses already having to close. So there are some spaces that have become vacant. And if they're basically very close to your facility, you could ask that landlord if you could use that space to also be teaching additional classes or do personal training. And, you know, landlords today are kind of open to any kind of option. So if it means you perhaps showing the space for people who are interested in renting the space out so that they don't have to come, you know, all the time to show the space. And in exchange, you can actually have the space and be teaching some classes, then that would be an opportunity for both of you. So be creative, you know, see a little bit what is happening around you and turn it to your advantage. The same thing with your staff members. You know, your schedule is going to depend on how many staff members you're going to have that are actually going to be coming back, as well as freelancers. So if you're only going to have half of your team come back, well, you're only going to be able to offer as many classes as you have teams to teach it. And the same thing for your facility. Again, it depends of how your facility works, but in your gym space, you may have somebody who's there all the time to give practical advice to your customers. So they need to basically be able to have the same service that they had before the lockdown. It is also important to know that customers have changed their schedule. So some of them are home working, so they have more time to actually come during the day to work out. So the schedule that has worked for you before may not work for you now. And here again, it's going to be important to try, you know, working around the schedule and seeing how customers react to it. And so it's important to actually see and speak to your customers to see basically if what you're proposing is what they are expecting. So this way, this is going to maximize basically their experience within your facility. In terms of your software, this is a tool that's really going to help you out through this, because you are going to need to put maximum capacities in the classes and in your fitness area. So it's important to add these with proper capacity on your software, and make sure that the guidelines are respected. I have seen a case about a month ago of a gym who had done everything that they had to do according to the guidelines, and there was still a customer who during that first week said, well, you know, that social distancing is not being respected, so I should just be calling the cops. So don't underestimate the fact that this can happen. Really try to follow the guidelines and not try to say, well, I can just squeeze in an extra person into this class. Definitely not those first couple of weeks, because people need to regain their trust into your business. So one other thing that is actually something that has been seen is customers will be out of shape. Don't underestimate that. Even if people have been doing on-demand classes at home, it's not the same as being physically in the gym and in the group lessons. So it's really important to adapt your classes or your personal training, or, you know, what the services that you're offering, as if people are coming in for the first time and they have not been exercising in 4 months. So that's really super important to keep in mind. During that first, the first month, I would say, it's really important that every visit that you have of customers coming in are pre-booked. So no matter what it is that they're coming to do in your facility, they need to pre-book the space at a specific time. If they're not coming at that specific time, they need to respect that. And it's really important to make them understand that these pre-booked space spots need to be respected, again, to enforce the well-being of all members and staff. One of the things you may want to do for that is you may want to revisit your cancellation and wait list policy, because there's nothing worse and more frustrating for a customer to actually try to book themselves into a class that's already completely full. And then you have some people who are not showing up for the class, which means you may have 1 or 2 spots that are going to be empty, and you're going to have some frustrated customers. So it's really important for you to revisit your cancellations and waitlist policies, because they'll probably be slightly different than they were before you closed down.
Yeah,
I would say one last tip is, like, if anybody in the facility or customers are showing any kind of COVID symptoms, obviously they should not be let in your facility.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what I was just about to say. I think we need to be very aware that there are going to be customers who feel like they have symptoms, and you might need to align your cancellation policy with that. Instead of 24 hours, it's, morning of or something along those lines, so that you can take that guilt away from people not showing up, and also fill those spots should they call in and say, I can't make it because I think I have symptoms. So that's one. A couple of points that, as we were talking through this, I was thinking about what my customers are doing. So Sabrina mentioned, thinking about what you can do in your parking lot spaces. So I have a couple customers who are setting up tents in front of their, not camping tents, but, covered spaces that'll allow them to give outdoor yoga classes, or just like a PT session, a HIIT session outside. They're not too bothered by, say, having a HIIT session in the park. I've seen an amazing yoga studio that I follow and will be returning to, who will start doing hiking sessions where they take people out and hike near whatever their nearest space are. Of course, follow the laws there. You probably need to look into those, but think outside the box about where you can give these classes and how you can schedule them. And I also know, just one more thing from me is adding from personal experiences. As I've started to work from home, and actually I've worked from home for quite a few years before all of this happened, my schedule is very different. I can be more flexible. So I may be able to go to a 3 o'clock class, and those classes that may not have been popular before will be more popular because people will have more flexibility in their schedules. So you can put more classes on that are smaller. So those are just some thoughts that came up while Sabrina was speaking there. So I just want to quickly move on to our next section, which is about staffing. So we know in our industry, our staff are the most important. We want to keep them safe. We want to keep them comfortable. Keeping them happy to work with you helps your customers as well, gives them confidence. So what would you suggest? What are your suggestions, Sabrina, on what you would do to help staff feel healthy and comfortable as they return back to work?
Well, staffing is your bread and butter. It is your team that really makes a success out of your business. So it's super important to, hopefully you will have been in touch with them throughout all of this, but it's super important to really understand where they're at the moment. So you may have some of your staff that may have had a change in their personal lives and who may not be coming back. You may have some staff members who are going to be very uncomfortable because of perhaps health issues about coming back. And then you're going to have staff members who are going to be super excited to come back because, they've had enough of the confinement, as most people have. So the first thing to do, obviously, is if they've been put on furlough, is to call them back from furlough and make them part of your reopening plan. It is so important to make sure that the staff members, are happy, that they haven't had mental wellness issues, which we've heard a lot about from people having been at home for such a long time, and that they're healthy. Obviously, they should check, the checklist of not having any of the symptoms that are represented in COVID, because you can't let them back in into your business if they are showing any symptoms. So that is the first thing to do, is to evaluate who's coming back. Once you've been able to evaluate that, is, make sure you have a backup plan. Imagine you have maybe 2 or 3 staff members who are not coming back for any reasons, and you need to hire. There are lots of people who are available right now. There's some amazing talent who unfortunately have lost their jobs. And so it's important for you to have job descriptions available of the different positions that you may need to hire, so that if that is the case of you needing to hire, you can actually post a job ad really, really quickly. They will also, the staff will need to adapt to working as a team under these new circumstances and welcome customers back. So it's really super important that they feel comfortable with speaking to customers about these new procedures and implementing them. And it's important that this is done before the day that you reopen. Obviously, training is going to be fundamentally important for your team in order for them to be ready to welcome customers back. And you will only have one chance to bring these customers back. So, it can't seem that they are just going to be coming back on that first day you reopen, and then you will be actually explaining to them what they're supposed to do and what they're supposed to say. So the communication with your team is really, really, really important. I can't, don't underestimate how important it is. In terms of your schedule, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, it's obviously important to adapt the staffing availability and their needs and availability to your new schedule. So it's important that they are aware of when they are going to be able to be in the facility and when not. Because you should only have in your facility the staff members that are needed on site. So anybody who can still continue to work from home should continue to work from home. That is really, really important as well when you first start to reopen. Obviously, they need to be made aware of not just the cleaning protocol for the facility, but for themselves as well. How often should they be washing their hands? Should they be wearing masks or not? These are all things that you really need to go through them. In terms of the masks, what we have seen from experience is that exercising with masks is just not healthy. It's very challenging and difficult. And obviously when you're promoting wellness, you want to be able to promote it from somebody who is healthy. So masks can be worn by the staff that is at the reception, but it's not mandatory. So that's really up to you to decide what message you feel comfortable portraying towards your customers. So I will just end this section by saying, staffing is really the most important part of the success of the reopening of your business. So, I can't reiterate enough the fact that they need to be trained and that they need to feel welcome and they need to feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep them comfortable, keep them healthy as best as you can. In later sections, we'll discuss what we can do with some of those staff who are comfortable coming back, and maybe some suggestions on how you can utilize them in a different way where they do not need to be in studio. So we'll discuss that in future sections. So cool. So we're going to move on to the next section, which is the retention of customers. And I think this is a huge area that people are worried about. How many customers are going to actually come back? Is it going to be enough for me to keep my business open? And how do I retain them? So do you have any advice on that, Sabrina? I'm sure you have tons. And I'm sure you have some great examples of what happened with Little Jim as well.
Yeah, well, what we've seen, at the Little Gym and through others in the wellness industry is that you have about 30% of customers who come back in that first week of opening. And then the good news is that actually that percentage increases on a weekly basis. Obviously, this is very dependent on how well these guidelines are followed. But, the retention of the customers, well, hopefully there will have been some service that you will have made available to them throughout the lockdown. And if that's the case, obviously they will have had that constant, contact with you, even if it's a virtual contact. But really, if you think about retention, the first thing that you need to think about is you will have one chance to convince your customers to come back. So make sure that you're ready, because that will be key to retention and getting that word of mouth going about the fact that, the facility is perfect to come back to. The second really super important thing about retention of customers is communication about health and safety. And that you're putting everything in place to welcome the customers back. I know I've said this several times, but that's really because it's super, super important. You need to gain their trust back. Trust equals retention. So the third thing I would say is their experience is going to be key. So when they come in, if everything is easy to follow, they're enjoying, what they've come to do, they will be happy to come back if they feel comfortable. So, those are probably the most important aspects, at least in the beginning stages of reopening. Obviously, as the business is reopening and on a weekly basis, these strategies will actually slightly differ as you progress. What are some of the options that you can be offering your customers for services that have been paid that were not delivered? This is a big one in retaining your customers. So, some examples of things that you could do is the extension of their membership. Again, I'm going to give a couple of examples, but I know every business has different pricing policies in place. So it's important to be able to basically adapt to the needs of your business. But, these are just some general ideas. So if they have, let's say, a yearly membership that they have paid, well, can you just extend the membership for the months that were paid for that the services were not delivered? So that's one of the things. The second option could be, with this whole big credit that they have, because your facility has likely been closed for months, can they use some of that credit to give to friends and to family who can come and experience the facility, which they may not have been able to do that before? That's another option of what they could do. A third one could be to give them a voucher with the amount that is owed to them and an expiration date so that they can use it for future services. In a first phase, you will want to try to get some cash back into your business. So it's best to try to spread out any money owed to customers, but yet you want to retain them. So if they're asking for it, you should give it back to them. And what we've seen actually as something quite successful when I was working with a little gym is the donation for your business. So let's say that customers are owed 4 months of services, they may want to actually give you 2 months out of those fees, just to ensure that your business continues to exist. And you'd be surprised at how generous people are. So don't shy away from the fact that, you're part of a community, you've built that community, and the customers are loving coming to your facility. So if they can be part of the solution of you staying open, they will. And it's okay to ask for help in difficult times. And that's something that entrepreneurs very much shy away from, but it's okay. It's something that can be done. So another question that you can ask yourself is, how can I finance all of these offerings? So again, cash is king. Try to get as many customers to start paying back again as soon as they come back, so that you can survive as a business. Obviously the financial impact of COVID has been quite big, and the revenue that you've lost in these 4 months, you're unlikely going to be recuperating it. So your priority really should be on having some revenue coming in one way or another. If you've offered, online classes during the lockdown, whether they're through Zoom or on demand, and you've not charged for them, this again can be used as also part of the services that you have not basically been able to give and that customers have paid for. So the next thing I would say is look at pricing bundles. If customers are not happy to do workouts at home, then why not trying to do some bundles for customers who are not yet comfortable coming back, which will probably be about 30% of your customers. You know, they will want to continue to do their online classes, whether they're live Zoom classes or, you know, they're on demand. But if that's the case, then make that part of your pricing bundles. So what can be some options in terms of pricing bundles for your customers? The first one can be obviously your regular offering that you've always had in your facility. That should remain. I would not suggest at this point to increase your prices. At least get customers back in through the door first, even though it's very tempting. It's not something that I would recommend, because that should not be the most important thing in getting your customers back in. The second one would be an online offering of classes instead of in gym. So whether, again, as I was saying, live streaming or on demand can also be done. You could even at some point, you know, if customers are used to coming, let's say, to a Hatha yoga class on Tuesday at 10, you could live stream that class so that they still see their favorite teacher teaching it, and they're able to follow the class at home just because they're not comfortable coming back. The third option, obviously, is the on-demand offering in the pre-recorded classes. And what I'm seeing as a future trend right now is the fact that customers will want a little bit of everything. So they have had access to all of these different online content, which for a lot of people have been free. Well, they will now want to have in facility experiences, digital experiences, and perhaps even some personal training one-on-one, even digitally. And you can then make bundles with it. You can have one price for in-gym, one price for digital, one price for in-gym plus digital, and whatever other experiences that you've been able to put together. But on, you know, anything that has been online is not a temporary offering. It should now really, you need to think through this as something that should be added permanently to your business. So, you know, these are some tips and tricks of what I have seen work, and that seems to be, again, you know, baby steps. It's all about, you can't change everything overnight. And so it's really about trying to adapt and trying some of these strategies, and some of these may work and some of these may not work for your business, and that's completely fine. But at least you have a bit of ideas of things you can try.
I think human behavior wise, so I've come in many industries outside of fitness as well, especially in marketing, and retention has been a huge thing that I've gone through in every industry. Human behavior says that about 30% of people will be gung-ho. They'll come back, they want to join the business, they cannot stay home. They're sick of working out at home, so they're going to go to your gym. And that's what's going to happen. I think Sabrina said, you know, you'll have an increase from there. 30% after that are waiting to see what happens. They're going to see whether your business is following guidelines. They will hear word of mouth from those customers who go first, that things are going smoothly, and then they will join. And you'll see a steady increase in that 30%. And 30% are going to be more cautious. So that brings us to about 90%. And that is where I really think you need to start thinking about having another, you know, income stream for those people who want to work out at home. So not plugging Mindbody too much, but we do have a focus now on offering a virtual wellness platform that will allow you to give live streaming classes, to have a video on demand. It's fairly new and we are so excited about it, but it's something to just start thinking about. Maybe it's not something that you focus on right now as you open up, but start thinking about it. Start having ideas about how you can get that last 30% into still coming and enjoying the services that you offer in your business. So and of course, there will be 10% that don't return, and that comes down to they're at risk. They change personality-wise over all of this. So, yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, just set your expectations that not everyone's going to come back right away. It's going to be a slow and steady process. We have been keeping an eye out on some of our Asian businesses in Hong Kong and China, and have noticed that business has steadily gone back to normal. So we do know that it is going to get better. We've seen the stats, but we just need to make sure that we are preparing for that second wave, which we'll talk about in just a bit. But yeah, set your expectations that it's not going to be full on right from the beginning, but they will return. As long as you are making your customers feel comfortable. All right, so I want to move on here. What additional marketing strategies would you suggest, would you recommend to retain customers?
So marketing is key, and as we've talked a lot about already today, is the key focus needs to be on health and safety. That is your number one marketing message for the moment. So in terms of your strategies, really about communicating the fact that welcome back, you know, it's nice to even have a simple message that just says welcome back, and that they will be welcome and everything will be safe when they're back into your facility. And that they feel appreciated, that you feel that obviously them coming back is very much appreciated. So at this point, what else can you do in terms of marketing strategies is, if you have the budget, is to start advertising again a little bit on your social media. But more importantly, I would say, is work on a PR strategy and work with your community, because obviously all the wellness businesses are really focused on marketing in their community. So have that community work with you, and maybe see with other businesses that you can promote each other's businesses as well. But the word of mouth is so important in this particular instance, that you want really the experience to be flawless when they come in. And to get PR, maybe call a local TV station, maybe have them come in and film, or you can have some other local authorities or bloggers write about the fact that you've reopened, and see and basically not see how you've put it all well together, and that they can actually talk about their experience. But at this point, this is really what's going to get the word out that people should come back, is the fact that all of the health and safety measures are back in place, and that you're following the government guidelines. And of course, that the amazing of the customer, their experience when they are coming back into the studio is actually fantastic. So, you know, be prepared, be ready, be professional. These are all really important in terms of your marketing strategies. In terms of the tools that you could do to actually help with all of this, is you could do a small video tour of your facility so that customers can visualize what is going to happen once they come back in. From my personal experience, and this is going back to a gym or to a hairdresser, you know, customers kind of come in that first day and they're just kind of like, okay, they just stand in front of your door and like, okay, what is expected of me? So, you know, make sure that if they have a little video, they know exactly what is expected of them, and they will adapt. It's really also super important to adapt your social media accounts and website to reflect any kind of new opening hours or service offering that has changed. On social media, focus on welcoming the customers back, and again, putting in that little video that shows what is expected of your customers when they're coming back. And, you know, the great thing about being in the wellness industry is obviously the fact that being healthy is probably the most important thing about combating this disease, or this virus, I should say. You know, a strong immune system is going to be really probably the best defense anybody is going to have at ensuring that they remain healthy. So you are in a fantastic industry to be able to convey that message, and you can make a difference. So, you know, put it out there. It's okay. It's okay to say that, you know, your health is so important to fight back against this virus. So any kind of communication that you've had to change, whether it's auto reply emails or Google My Business or any of these things, these are things to make sure that the communication has been updated to the fact that you're reopening and that you're putting in place a new schedule and a new measures in place for when the customers are coming back.
Yeah, so I really love the idea of the video tour. I know that I've received a lot of emails from my favorite studios. I'm a huge part of the industry because I work in it, but also because I love it. And the emails and the communications that I've had have just put me at ease, and I'm going to return right away. And I will continue to return, especially with reminders of added class schedules, new classes that I can go to, because again, my schedule is going to be very flexible. But yeah, so I think really we really want to continue to keep our lines of communication open in more than just emails. Those kind of get lost as well. I think I've seen some amazing things on Instagram. Those just kind of keep your customers in the loop about what's happening, about the excitement. Like, it is really exciting to be open, and I am, as a customer, super excited to be returning as well. So keep that excitement up as you speak and communicate with them. So that's just, my 2 cents there. And also what I'm seeing from my customers who use Mindbody and their customers, and what they're saying is there's some really loyal customers who are super excited to come back. So lean on that and lean into it, and start using that to market and keep the excitement going. Now, I think we're just going to move on to the last thing here, which is preparing for the second wave. Any advice on what you think we should be doing? I know that we've seen some countries are already hitting the second wave, and we expect that it's going to happen. So what should we be doing while we wait for this to come?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a really good question, because what we're seeing now in a good part of the world is that in case of a second wave, is that obviously it's not an entire country that gets locked down. It's more a specific city that kind of gets put on lockdown, or that has tighter measures that are put in place. This being said, we need to be ready. And it is now that we need to be ready for this. So I would say, in terms of your strategy for a second wave, the first thing is to always be reminded as to why you've started this business. And the second thing is about, what is it that you're going to do today, that is in your power to do today, to ensure that customers can continue to follow your experience, even if they are supposed to stay at home for a period of time. So this can mean, again, any of the different options that we talked about earlier today. You doing online classes, I think, is a must for everybody to just be ready to have an online offering. And that, you could even propose in your new terms and conditions, let's say if you decide to update them, that in the event that your business is closed, that you will continue to do the offering online. And so this way, it basically allows you to continue to have an income even if your doors are physically closed. It could also be that these classes are given outside. It could mean that, there are different things that you're going to be putting in place now that you could reuse in case of closing, of a temporary closure. So find out what works and what doesn't work with your customers throughout this time, but always think about the possibility that there could be a second wave, which, from what the media is saying, could be around, October. So you do have a little bit of time to prepare content. And think about, what is running live classes versus live streaming versus on demand? What is it that would work best for your business? And if you are creating content, it needs to be professional content. While everybody has done the best that they could, obviously, in the last 4 months, there has been a bit of everything online. And the ones that stand out the most are the ones that are professionally done. So it's important to invest a little bit of money into good lighting, good video equipment, good sound equipment, a good platform to have all of this online content. And so now is a great time to actually see what works best for your business and what does your customer prefer. So, this is really important. And another thing is really to see what is some additional revenue stream that you could have besides that. But what you do not want to happen is having your business close and then have no income at all. Because the government has given all kinds of help at the moment, but there probably won't be as much help in a second wave, because it's just not feasible economically to continue to pay. So, what can you do with your landlord about what's happening in case of a second wave? What do you do with your customers and your products and services? What is it? I mean, start thinking now about what are some parallel options for you to continue to have some income stream in case you should have a second wave. But all in all, I would say, keep it simple. There is no need to go crazy. And that is the case for everything in terms of the government guidance or reopening or having to close again for a second wave. Is try to keep it simple. And I would say focused on 2 things that you do great. Don't do 10 things halfway. Just do great on 2 things and put your energy and time and investment in that, because that is going to make a difference.
Yeah, so I just want to add a couple things here to this section before we close off. Really keep in mind that these virtual offerings are going to be your ticket to staying afloat through all of this. And I know that it might seem that the market is very, there's just a lot going on in it, and you may not feel like you're going to stand out in it. But there's a reason why customers go to certain bricks and mortar studios. There's the class and structure, there's the feeling of it, the tribe feeling. I hate using the word tribe, but so even if maybe you only get 20 people using your video on demand or your live streaming, then that's fine. You're still making income from that. You're still bringing that in, and it's really important because you still want to continue to connect with those customers even in lockdown. And I think a lot of them are going to come back and they're going to want to work out. They're going to want to get back into shape. And then they're going to be brokenhearted when the second wave comes along and they can't continue to connect with the people that have been helping them get back into shape. So having those virtual platform, those virtual streams of revenue are really going to help. Now, I'm also going to add here that Mindbody can help here in a couple of ways. We do have our virtual wellness platform. I'm not going to talk about it too much. If you have a Mindbody contact, reach out to them. They will explain to you what we have and what's coming. It's growing. It's becoming better every day for our industry. But also keep in mind that we have partners at Mindbody who can help you understand what equipment you need so that you do have that professional quality. So we have a partner that can give you different package types with the right recording microphone, recording equipment, cameras, microphone, based on your needs. So just start doing your research, start looking into it, and then we can really help you there. So reach out to your Mindbody contact. We're here to help. We always have been through all of this, and we just want to be there for you. So that's my last spiel. The last thing I just want to say is that I want to share with you guys some resources here on the screen. Just give me a second to get them up. All right. Now, these are our final resources. So thank you for attending today. But we're going to have a blog post that comes up that will be available to you. So go ahead and access that. It's going to follow the points that we just went over. So don't worry if you didn't take notes, it's all there. Also, really keep an eye out on UK Active. Their advice is thorough. From what I've heard, when they put their plan forward to the government about opening opening studios, their plan was the best. So I would definitely, the best that came out of all industries, even the hospitality industry, etc. But I would just definitely suggest going and keeping an eye on UK Active because they really do know what is going to be best, and they're probably going to change their guidance as we learn more and as time goes on. So these are some really amazing resources, and I just want to end here by saying thank you so much, Sabrina, for joining us and for giving me a chance to discuss all of these amazing topics and this advice, because sometimes there's a lot out there and it's just good to know from somebody who's already been there and who's already been dealing with it. And while we don't know what's going to happen, it's good to have a starting place. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Amnesty, and wish everybody good luck in your reopening, and obviously remain available for any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you.